Hi students, the last dichotomy for the MBTI that we're looking at is our judging versus our perceiving tendencies. And this is one of my favorite tendencies to talk about because I'm like off the charts in this tendency on one of the dichotomies. And what the J versus the P, the last dichotomy, judging versus perceiving, is really looking at how do we relate to the external world. So this last area right here. Do you relate more and have more judging tendencies or more perceiving tendencies? And this doesn't mean, are you a judgmental person? Are you a perceptive person? That's not what that means at all. That's just really looking at how do you relate to the external world. And the external world, what I mean by that is everything outside of our internal minds and thoughts and feelings, everything on the outside, our external world, our environment, our home situation, our work situation, just everything external from our internal world of our minds, our thoughts, our feelings. So again, my husband and I, completely different ends of the spectrum, and we both are like off the charts on either side of this dichotomy. I lean way more towards the judging side. He leans way towards the perceiving side. And the judging side, really those tendencies tend to be, and this is a great picture, we are more of task-oriented people that have a checklist. Again, we're a bit more organized in the way that we relate to the external world versus somebody who's leaning more towards the perceiving side. They have a lot of different things on their plate. They are very flexible in the way they relate to the external world. They like to keep a lot of things open, a lot of options. They're very loose with their external world, whereas those that lean more towards judging tend to be a little bit more controlled and a little bit more organized in a sense. So keep in mind things like on the judging side, they like to be planners. They're the organizers. They dislike it when things come out of left field. So they're not very good with change because they have a very organized way that they look at their day and they look at their environment. They really enjoy finishing things, checking things off of their checklist. If you look at me right now in my office, I have a little Post-it with like little things listed, and I go through and I cross it off when I'm done with it, and it feels so nice to do that. It's like really nice to just have a Post-it with nothing left on it to do. They really like to bring structure. They like to talk about results and achievements, and they look at schedules and lists. I just got off of the computer looking at my schedule for next week. Those that lean more towards perceiving, they like to be a little bit more spontaneous. They're flexible. They can adapt to last minute changes. So if they're working on a project and somebody comes in and says, hey, we have a new project with a new deadline, you got to put that project aside, they're okay with that. They say, okay, let's close that up. Let's start on the new project. Versus those who are a little bit more judging, on the judging side, would be a little bit more stressed out about that. They wouldn't handle that change very well. They'd have to listen to their supervisor. They'd say, okay, let's do that. But they would have an internal struggle with that. They don't like that feeling of a project not being done, and then they have to switch something to something new. That's just a little bit more of a challenge. Those that lean more towards the perceiving side, they start tasks and leave them open for changes. They can get easily distracted by new information. They like to talk a lot about other opportunities and options, and they like to use lists that reflect possible things to do when time allows. Whereas somebody who's on the judging side will use a list to dictate what they need to do, and they'll create a list and then they'll mark off that list, done, that's a task that was done. Those that lean more towards judging will create a list, but they may not get to anything on the list, and they're okay with that. Those that lean more towards judging would have a list, and you know that they're going to get those things done. And if they don't get those things done, they have an internal distress over that. I lean, again, way towards the judging side. So the funny thing, and you can see it in my personal life with my husband and I, on the weekends, we wake up, about half an hour after I wake up, I already have an internal schedule of our day. we got to do groceries, we're going to then do this, I'm going to then head to here, the nap time for the kiddos is going to be at this time. I have a very structured timeline of our day. My husband wakes up half an hour after waking up. He's kind of like, whatever happens today. Oh, the kids need a nap. What time? I don't know. Somewhere around this time. If something comes up, he gets a phone call and says, hey, family's in town, wants to have lunch. Let's meet them. Okay. That for me throws me off. I kind of have to readjust the schedule in my day. I'll still do it. I'll still enjoy it. I'm not very militant on that, but it takes me a little bit more of a shift to do that. If we go on vacation, we had a very relaxing vacation to Hawaii. We did nothing, but I had plans to do nothing. My plan for Saturday was to sit by the beach and not do anything. My plan the next day was to go on a hike and then sit at the beach and do nothing. So I had planned in those non-eventful days. So again, that's the way I just relate to my external world. I'm a little bit more structured. I like the plan. I like the structure. My husband leans more towards the other way. He's flexible. He'll take things as they come. He will change plans. He doesn't mind not having any plans, or if he has plans, he can stick to them. He doesn't have to stick to them. So again, it's just a different way of being. Can I be more flexible and let go of my plans? Sure. And sometimes I do. I'll say, okay, well, I don't really have anything on the agenda today. Is that my natural tendency? No. Do I have more days of that? No. More of my days are planned and structured. Can he be good at creating a structured day? Can he plan events? Sure. Is it his natural tendency? No. Does it take more effort for him to do that? Yes. So again, I always like to say, keep in mind these are just natural tendencies. And keep in mind when you're in a work environment, what's your natural tendency? The more we can gravitate towards environments that match these preferences, the more we're going to have job satisfaction because they're, again, working with our natural tendencies. So hopefully that gives you a good explanation of the 4 areas that the MBTI looks at in terms of our personality.